Hi, I'm attorney Gary Bowman, and I'm just going to talk to you for a few minutes about the kinds of things that most people ask about bankruptcy when they come in to see me in person. The first thing I want to say is that bankruptcy is something that you have to think very carefully about. It's not something that you enter into lightly. But it's sometimes necessary. That's why Congress has enacted the Bankruptcy Code, which allows people to get a complete discharge of their debts. There are some debts that aren't discharged, and there's a list of those debts in the frequently asked questions part of my website. But most of your debts can be discharged in bankruptcy, and that allows you to get a fresh start financially. There are disadvantages to filing bankruptcy also, and I'll talk about those in a few minutes. So if you can file bankruptcy, an important question is, should you file bankruptcy? And you shouldn't file bankruptcy if you have any other way to deal with your financial problems. However, in some circumstances, bankruptcy may be the only alternative that you have to hang on to your property, particularly your wages, or hang on to your home if it's about to be foreclosed on. The circumstances as to when you should file bankruptcy vary so much from person to person that that's really something that you need to call me on the telephone and talk about. And if there's a way that you can deal with your financial problems without filing bankruptcy, then I'll certainly tell you that. One of the important questions for clients and for me is how much a bankruptcy costs. I have information about the costs on the website. However, because I practice throughout the state of Virginia, and because the market for bankruptcy services is different in different parts of the state, it's hard for me to tell you in a video like this, or tell you even over the phone without getting some information from you and without knowing where you're from, exactly how much your bankruptcy is going to cost. The commitment that I do make, though, is that I will charge the least in the market. So, for example, in the Western Virginia area, I'm committed to charging the least bankruptcy attorney's fees in Western Virginia. The same thing in Northern Virginia. But those fees vary some as the market changes. So I'll be happy to discuss that with you in detail if you'll call me at the phone number on the website. Okay, so the last thing that I'm going to talk about is what the process is, what will happen if you file bankruptcy. Okay, the first thing that has to happen is that you need to call me on the telephone so I can discuss your circumstances and try and determine if bankruptcy is a feasible alternative for you. Once you've decided to file bankruptcy, then you need to do credit counseling with one of the approved credit counselors on the list that's on the website. Okay, once you've obtained a certificate stating that you've successfully completed credit counseling, okay, then we can begin to prepare your papers for filing with the bankruptcy court. In order to file those papers properly, I need a lot of documentation from you. And I've got a checklist of the documents that you need to provide on the website. If you filed bankruptcy in the past, the documentation requirements are a lot more extensive now. So you need to pay careful attention to the documentation requirements that are on the website. Once you've gathered those papers together, okay, then you need to make an appointment. When you come in for the appointment, we will prepare the bankruptcy schedules and may even have them ready for you to sign at that first appointment. So the key is preparation. You need to do your credit counseling, and you need to have all your documentation together when you come in for the first appointment. Okay, we will then file the case with the court. When we file the case with the court will send out a notice to you, to me, to all of your creditors, telling them that you filed bankruptcy. Okay, in most cases, your creditors will not be able to bother you once you filed the bankruptcy case. So if you have a wage garnishment, the garnishment will stop once we file the bankruptcy case. If your house is being foreclosed on, the foreclosure proceedings will stop once we file the bankruptcy case. That notice that you get from the court will set the date for what's called a creditors meeting. The creditors meeting will be at the courthouse. It is with the bankruptcy trustee who's appointed to oversee your case. That trustee will ask you some questions to make sure that the information that you provided in your bankruptcy schedules is correct. and your creditors may be able to come to the meeting to ask you questions about their debt or what property you have. Often creditors don't come to those meetings, but creditors have an opportunity to come to the meeting. Your creditors meeting will be about 5 weeks after we file the bankruptcy case. About 2 months after you file the bankruptcy case, you'll probably have to go to court for some sort of motion. Depending on the circumstances of your case, depends on what the motion is. You may have a motion relating to creditor action against you. You may have to respond to a motion for relief from the stay, it's called. You may have a motion to reaffirm a debt, but there will probably be some sort of motions that will have to be filed in your case. 90 days after you file your case, you're going to get a discharge in the mail. That's a piece of paper signed by the judge saying that you went through the bankruptcy and your debts are discharged. In some jurisdictions, you have to also come to a discharge hearing. When you come to the discharge hearing, the judge will just give you a speech about your rights and responsibilities having gone through bankruptcy. It's very simple, but you may have to come to that. Now, there are different types of bankruptcy. What I just described is the process for a simple Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Chapter 13 bankruptcy is a reorganization. It's considerably more complicated. It's not so complicated that you can't successfully do it, but it is a different process, and I'm not going to go through that in the video. If you want to get more details on that, please call me on the telephone. And Chapter 11 bankruptcy is a business reorganization. Sometimes that's appropriate for individuals, but again, that's not something that's commonly done for individuals, so we would need to talk about that on the telephone. Okay, now the downside of filing bankruptcy is that after you file bankruptcy, the bankruptcy can be reported on your credit report for 10 years. Okay, so bankruptcy is not a credit repair strategy because your credit report is probably bad before you file bankruptcy. After you file bankruptcy, it's going to be reported on your credit report for 10 years, so your credit report is still going to have bad information on it. Bankruptcy can be helpful to get you out of a real financial jam. It's also expensive. I'll do the best I can to get you the rights that you're entitled to under the law, which is a discharge. If you have any other questions about this, please call me on the phone at the number listed on the